So welcome back to Explore Your Dark Side. My name is Stephanie Bosch, and this video is the second one of a introduction of the Hogan Assessments, HBI, HDS, and MBPI. So this one is all about the dark side of personality, HDS, or the Hogan Development Survey. If you haven't seen the first one I filmed, which was about the Hogan Personality Inventory, which assesses everyday behavior, then I'm going to link this down below. And there will be a third one regarding the MVPI, so the Motor Values Preference Inventory from Hogan Assessments. So if you haven't seen the first video I filmed yet, then I would recommend you to check it out, simply because in the beginning I explain how this all is put together, what the scales mean, what subscales mean. I'm going to go into detail obviously as well for this video, but not as much like general explanation about how it works, really concise to the assessment we're going to talk about here. I already mentioned that the Hogan Development Survey, so the HDS, assesses the dark side of personality. And the dark side of personality is shown when a person is in an extreme situation. So this could be stress, this could be pressure. Often we have like this self-awareness around us, so where we're quite reflected on how we are, how we react, etc. Under pressure, this tends to just be flashed away. So we don't really pay any more attention or are no longer self-aware of how does our behavior change under pressure. It is though really important to be aware and become aware, and not only become aware but also act on this knowledge of how you are going to change, how does your behavior change under pressure, simply because if you don't, this can damage your career, it can damage your relationships, it can ruin your reputation, and it basically can completely derail your chances of success in a corporation. So the beauty in a nutshell about the HDS and why people should become aware of their dark side is because you can identify and manage your potential performance risks before they become a real problem. So you can just become a better person, and you can increase your reputation and just become or be seen as this fabulous human being you would like to be. And on a bigger level, you know what? It would be great if we would be just all become a bit aware of our dark side and how we are under pressure, because then also we would just make the world a better place, and we would create just way healthier and happier workplaces. Yes. I mean, obviously, this also, I mentioned in the other video that the Hogan Assessments can also be used for recruitment purposes. So this would mean if you use it in a kind of like personal selection and assessment process, you can select people out also who are not a good fit for your company or who would bring in too much risk for your company. This is not necessarily my area where I work or enjoy working too much, so I do leadership development. However, even then it's important for you to understand how much risk do you potentially bring in, because if you are more on the risky side, you might first of all want to become aware and take action, but on the second thought you might also want to bring someone in who is more like a safe bet for you. As already mentioned before, Hogan Assessments are reliable, they are valid, and they are based in science. But I'm going to read this sentence out for you from the webpage, so you know how to make it up. Introduced in 1997, so this thing is already, a fair share of years old. The HDS is the only personality assessment that identifies critical blind spots that lead to career derailment. So if you want an assessment that is proper, that is good, that is reliable and valid, and that helps you to identify your very own blind spots, then this is the one for you. Also, you will need a certified Hogan consultant who will give you feedback. I'm Hogan certified, so if you want any help from me, I'm happy to help, but also there are other people who can do it in your language if you need someone who, for example, speaks Spanish or whatever, right? So you will need someone. It's a sign of quality that you can't simply just go online and read your results out and that's all the help you get. No, you will get a proper debrief, you will get a proper feedback, and someone is talking you through your results. So you really understand what does it mean, what is the impact, and what to do with it from then. Now, the Hogan Development Survey contains of 11 scales, and 33 subscales. In the following, I will quickly go over the scales, the main scales you will see on the report, and I will give you a definition of what does that actually mean. And then in the following, I will go with you over to the subscales and also help you understand what is being assessed in the main scale. So what subscales do the main scales consist of? Maybe before we dive in, I would like to say something about the percentiles and how the risk is classified actually. So if the score is between 70 and 89%, then we would refer to a moderate risk. If the score is 90 or above, we speak of a high risk. And again, this is referring to the benchmark. So this is referring to the average population, the global norm, the benchmark you're being compared to. In a nutshell, most of what you will see in the Hogan Development Survey can be classified as a strength. In this case, though, if it's in the HDS, it's an overused strength. If it is a moderate or high risk, right? So it might be just too much, so you're overdoing it. Obviously, it would depend on the context. So if you are, for example, a performing artist, or whatever, like someone who's on stage and people expect a performance, then you might can get away with way other risky behavior or be a bit more too much in certain settings. However, if you're an accountant, then yeah, you might not want to be the life of the party, but you might want to make sure that under pressure you really do focus on your numbers. So context does matter, obviously, as well. And also it gives you another good indication of if you show a moderate or high risk, you are most likely be seen as too much. So most people will show less of this behavior, which again can also, when we are not the same or when we're not similar and someone is showing one behavior more or has a different preference, it can sometimes put us off by being different. Okay, let's get started on the scale. So the first scale is excitable. And the excitable scale concerns working with passion and enthusiasm. So this is the strength, right? So this is the good, the juicy part. So excitable can obviously mean you're passionate, you're enthusiastic, and you want to push it forward like a good force, right? So that's obviously the good part of being excitable. However, doing it too much or showing too much of this excitability can also easily lead to frustration, to becoming moody, to become irritable, or also to get quite easily bored with projects. And it might be difficult to stick around and finish a project you've been started because, the excitement might just wear off and it just no longer is that much fun. The second scale is skeptical, and obviously skeptical is, again, it's good to be like a bit cautious and to hold back and to think things through before taking action. But skeptical refers here to not taking action at all, to being so skeptic that people would put action off. So they would fall into this like kind of can't do anything anymore, right? So it might put people off from taking action at all. And also it might be that, but I don't want to say paranoid, but it's like this kind of like being too skeptic can also mean that there is no trust at all and that people try to find the error, try to find why it won't work. So there's like just too much skepticism in the room. So for example, if you simply expect to be mistreated, if you start picking fights, if you start to argue, etc. Then we have the third scale, that is cautious. And cautious refers to risk aversion and the fear of failure. And also a quite strong one for cautiousness is the fear of potentially being criticized. So trying to completely avoid criticism, which obviously is quite hindering as well when you want to progress. Then we have the next scale, reserved, and reserved refers to being kind of detached, being unreachable for others, not emotionally sensitive to other people, to their feelings, etc. Then we have leisurely. So with leisurely, people tend to appear being friendly and cooperative, but actually they are like following their own agenda and doing their own thing on the side. It's usually done in a quiet way and resisting quite stubbornly what others are doing, or like the agenda of others. Then we have bold, and obviously a strength or like a positive thing associated with boldness is often this fearlessness, moving forward, quite confident and self-assured. However, when it's overused, this can quite easily translate into not taking any criticism, not taking any feedback, being unable to admit that you've made a mistake, or that actually that it was your fault. So it might be like totally blending out responsibility because you know what? No, I wouldn't I wouldn't make a mistake. Because no, I wouldn't make a mistake, right? So this like overused boldness. The next scale, and I just start laughing already because for someone who's not a native speaker, I guess that's probably one of the worst words to pronounce in English, but I'll try. So it's mischievous or mischievous. Uh, oh God, I'm so sorry. So mischievous concerns someone who's seemingly bright, attractive, adventurous, risk-taking, limit testing. But again, this can become too much, or it can be not appropriate to do so. So it might be that someone who's scaling high on this scale, yes, then I'll try to avoid this word again, then it could be that that this person is seen as not really thinking before taking action, not really being reliable, not really sticking to commitments, etc. Then we have colorful, and colorful refers to someone who's quite fun, who's very entertaining, who is making an appearance when they show up. They quite enjoy the spotlight. However, if it's like too much, and again, like depending on the context, this might totally be okay if you're a performer. Well, you know what? People will probably most likely expect some certain behavior of this. But if you're in an office setting, etc., or you work in a team, this might just be too much. If you talk more than you listen, and if you don't give other people in your team the chance to shine, this might in the long run harm your team effectiveness. On the other hand, if you're very low on colorfulness, it might be you're totally not promoting yourself, etc. So depending on what kind of career path you've planned out for yourself, this also gives an indication of where you might need to put in a bit more effort. Then we have imaginative, people who are quite innovative, who are like this big picture thinkers, quite visionary, who are usually quite creative, often even like eccentric, maybe in how they appear, what they're wearing, how they're showing up. They might be showing quite self-absorbed behavior, and it might happen that you get lost in your own thoughts, that you lose people because no one can really follow you anymore because you're like too high up in your vision, rather than doing the groundwork and understanding what needs to be done. So for example, if you are this big thinker and you are a leader, then this might get tricky for you when you are playing big, acquiring new products, coming up with new ideas, and the people who have to actually put it into action might just, don't know anymore what to prioritize, or kind of like lose sight. Then we have diligent, and diligent refers to being quite disciplined, hardworking, having very high standards for yourself, which you would also naturally display on others. So you would expect others to have the same high standards as you have. And again, this might be relevant, especially if you do like quality control, or like kind of work where this really matters. It might be in other cases not be that relevant, especially when you're under pressure, need to get stuff done. and you maybe tend not to get finished, or can't work towards a deadline, and you can't get a project finished. On the other hand, someone who has a very low score in this might be not really planning in advance their work, might not be too organized, etc. So again, it gives a quite good indication of where a person is at. So then we have the last scale, and the last scale is dutiful. Dutiful refers to being dependable and loyal, and being a good, like, organizational citizen. So being a good follower, if you want to call it like that. So these were the scales, and in the following I will quickly go over the subscales so you get an understanding of what do the scales consist of and what do the subscales actually mean. So what do they assess? So this gives a bit of a better understanding of the different scales of the behavior that is assessed, and a good understanding of the personality.